So my name's Julie Hesmondhalgh and I play, like everyone, a variety of smaller characters, but my main character is Joan. So the character of Joan is David's ex-wife and the mother of James, who is the victim in Punch. He's the young man that Jacob punched on a night out and who died from his injuries 9 days later. So the story is about them coming together through restorative justice, about reparations, about forgiveness, and about connection across a huge divide from the people who are the victims of crime to the perpetrator of the crime, and how we can better find understanding between those two groups. I knew that the play had stuff to say about things that are of huge interest to me as a human being and as an actor. And I was incredibly honoured to be asked to be part of it, because obviously to be offered a James Graham play is no small deal in this world of acting. So I was really, really over the moon to be asked, and I didn't hesitate. Doing Punch has been an incredible experience. I think Adam's put together a really fantastic group of actors, but also the wider creative team, all of whom were incredibly invested in the story and the wider meaning of the play. And I think that's really, really key, that throughout it all, we have the real story and the real people in our hearts and minds. And it has been, and I know it's an overused word, but one of the greatest privileges of my life, playing this incredible woman who is so full of grace, so full of generosity, who has managed to move beyond bitterness and anger into something really extraordinary, not only forgiving Jacob, not only working to turn his life around, but actually sharing a platform with him now. It was about trying to get under the skin of her, trying to understand the journey from being incredibly, of course, heartbroken and grief-stricken by her beloved son being taken from her in such extraordinary circumstances, through to bitterness and anger about the shortness of Jacob's sentence in the first instance, to something that's approached compassion over a number of years, and working with various organisations like the Forgiveness Project as we research the play. What I've learned and what I've realised is that is a very long journey and a very hard journey, and often it requires people to hit the bottom of the pool in terms of bleakness and darkness and bitterness and anger and all the things that make it very, very difficult to continue living. We didn't meet Joan and David until quite late on in the process, whereas Jacob was involved all the way through, because it is ostensibly his story. It's based on his memoirs. It's not just a story about compassion and forgiveness. It's also about the problems with our criminal justice system. It's about the architecture of social housing. It's about neurodiversity. It's about education, and in particular, of course, state education. It's about class. I know it's a very difficult topic for people to broach, but it very, very firmly requires people to put themselves in the shoes of all the characters, not just David and Joan. Like, how would I feel if this happened to me, if I lost a child to violence? Would I ever be able to even, contact the killer, let alone have connection with them and share a platform with them later? James always calls the telly empathy box in the corner, and I think that's absolutely true. But I think that in theatre, it can be even more powerful, because it's not just the requirements to really focus. You're sharing that experience with the people around you. And when David and Joan and Jacob meet for the first time, you can hear the sobs, and you can almost hear the sort of communal holding a breath in that moment. And that is something that is absolutely unique to theatre. It being done in Nottingham, when it's such a Nottingham story, although of course there have been one-punch deaths all over the world, and makes that very universal. I think that he had a lot to say about the East Midlands, about underinvestment, about what it is to grow up in an area that had been world leaders in industry and communication, and that and how that was taken away along with the mining communities and what is left with that. So it starts big and it goes in and in and in and in until you get this tiny little scene of 4 people sitting round a table talking. The first half is quite fast-paced. It's very much Jacob's story about how he got to this moment of the punch, all the different elements of his life that have brought that about. So there's a lot of quick character changes. There's a lot of exposition about growing up in Nottingham, about the different places and the different activities that you know, people from Nottingham would absolutely recognise, and people from outside Nottingham can relate to and translate to their own communities for sure. There's so much going on, so it's quite fast-paced and exciting, but then these very stark, simple, emotional scenes as well, which are very beautifully written and just slot in. It's an incredible thing. I'm not a writer, so I can't imagine how you begin to do that, but it's been an extraordinary thing in creating it and seeing what that looks like. And we had a wonderful movement director, Leanne, who is from Nottingham and who really knew how to sort of build that world as well and really helped Adam in creating it. I think that this play and production has come just at the right time. We're living in very binary times. We're living in a time where we are encouraged constantly to be pitted against each other, to stay in our bubble, to stick with our algorithm, to not ever be encouraged to reach outside what we know and understand into different worlds. And I think this play, at its heart, is about connection. I feel like it's absolutely essential viewing for right where we are now. And it's been interesting actually because it's obviously going to Broadway. We've had quite a few American audiences coming to see it, and I've been really, really interested in how it will translate, because obviously the criminal justice system is completely different in America. The education system is, and in some ways worse than it is here. And they've all really, really got it, and they all really, really believe that it is a play that will cross those geographical and societal boundaries. Obviously, it's a show for young people because it is a show about how your life can go off the rails, that you, in a moment of trying to belong, in a moment of just being a certain kind of young man in a certain kind of setting, you can change the course of your life and destroy not only the other person's life, but your own. I would love policymakers to come and see this. You know, there is a real marginalisation of organisations that are trying to do something differently. There's not an appetite for it. We want to punish people constantly. We feel like that's the best way to move forward, and we're encouraged always to think about young people being spoilt in prison. They've got tellies in the room or whatever, and any sort of therapy or any sort of trying to work with young people to change their lives is seen as kind of indulging them in some way. And I think that whole ethos has to change. It's hardwired into all of us from a really young age. You do something bad, you're punished, rather than actually trying to look at why people do bad things. My real honour when we were doing the play in Nottingham to be approached by Remedy, which is the restorative justice service that it features in the play, to be one of their patrons. So it's Eddie Susie, Izzard and Michael Palin. And I went to a kind of showcase day that they did in Sheffield, where Nicola, who Shalisha plays in the play, is from. And it was really, really extraordinary to see all these people, and a lot of them incredibly young people who work in all the different services that Remedy provide, getting up and talking about the work they do, and also seeing the people that they've mentored and helped in prisons, in schools, in the community, who talked about how Remedy has completely changed their life. And you know, the figures of the work that they do, I mean, they've helped tens of thousands of people over the past year. You know, there's over 2,000 offenders, over 2,000 victims that have been helped through restorative justice. There's community reparation scheme that they do out in communities with people who have offended against a community, and sort of helping them to re-establish themselves in that community and make amends, really. There's absolutely wonderful work in mentoring offenders, and apparently the police have said that 96% don't reoffend after having gone through the Remedy mentoring service. So I've learned so much about the much wider work that they do, even outside restorative justice. And of course, it's a terribly underfunded service. Not every community has resources to have it, and I would love people to learn more about that.